She is going to have a presentation, and then we're going to have a workshop again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. While waiting for the technical part to be sorted, I will try to do something more interactive. I hope it will work without weird noises. So I will throw one of these at you for now. And after the slides are starting, we are going to see further how are we going to advance. So this is one. I'm not very good with this kind of sports, so I apologize in advance. And I don't have many, so please share with your neighbors there. I'll have one here. Oh, I told you I'm not good, so. And here, probably somewhere in the middle, because there's only one. Okay, oh, that's the last one. Can we jump to the first slide, please, because that's the actual conclusion. Okay, without going back, because we want to keep the surprise. No? Okay. You can close it. Just fast up. Okay, so my name is Loredana Stasisin. I'm a Romanian based in Amsterdam because I've observed that people are kind of, I don't know, we don't know how to start a conversation around here because I come from Netherlands, but also I speak Romanian. So that is why I'm a Romanian and now I live in Netherlands. And I'm an architect and a heritage specialist. And for the last 3 years, I've been working with an European Bauhaus from different angles. So let's start playing. So what I shared with you, there are some pieces of paper. And I would like you to open those papers, which look like rubbish, right? If you look at it in the beginning. And I would ask you, what do you see inside of that paper? What is the first thing that triggers you? For the others, this is the image that I shared with you in the audience. So just, like, what did you observe in the first instance? The window, okay. And you in the back? The statue, the sculpture, okay. And here, what do we see here? Sculpture. The sculpture, right? And what's around the sculpture? What do you observe around the sculpture? Okay, we have nature. And we have nature in the house. We have nature outside the house. We can also observe that we are not in the interior space. We are somewhere outside, right? What else? Mm-hmm. It's a soft boundary. Something else? Exactly. So if you look at the larger picture around the sculpture, you are a person standing somewhere in a public space, looking in a private space, inside of a private space. You are also regarded because we see the windows behind you, so some people might also watch you while you are watching something inside. You are a bit intrusive, like trespassing, but then we go back to the sculpture, which has a strange position, right? Because it's not facing the indoor space, it's not oriented outside to make a statement, it's a space in between. And what you observed in the first instance, some of you, was actually the sculpture. That was what triggered you to look inside and to look at the window as a soft boundary, right? So what do we have? We have art that connects spaces and connects people, and art that acts as an invitation to some sort of dialogue, right? So at least for me personally, after 3 years of working with European Bauhaus from different angles, this is what NEB means in the end. It's an invitation to a certain kind of dialogue, more complex, which is not usually direct, and which is usually an opening action to something larger, right? How many of you heard about European Bauhaus before coming here? Just curious. Okay, so you know about beautiful, sustainable, and together. How many of you heard about the working principles of European Bauhaus and the NEB compass? Ah, yeah, this is where it gets complicated. Because beautiful, sustainable, together, it sounds lovely. It's like we know already about sustainability because it's been talked about for some time. We are kind of familiar with togetherness because, at least if you are in the creative sector and NGOs and stuff, you kind of done your work, you know, engaging communities and so on. But beauty, it's just beautiful to see it there. But what the heck means to have beauty in this kind of framework? And then you have working principles. And they are about participatory processes and multi-level engagement and transdisciplinary approach. What is that? Moreover, when the NEB Compass was published, we also discovered the strands. And the European Bauhaus is focused on 4 types of strands: reconnecting with nature, regaining the sense of belonging, prioritizing the places and people that need it the most, and the need for long-term life cycle thinking in the industrial ecosystem. So NEB is talking about beauty, sustainable, together, applying by engaging certain kind of working principle, but also focusing on this kind of priorities, right? I underlined regaining a sense of belonging because, at least to me, it feels like it's crucial if we want to interconnect goodness around our actions. It has to create some sort of ownership in a way or another. So this is how the European Bauhaus Compass looks like. This is the cover. I also added the reference for those of you who are going to look through the presentation so you can find the full document. What is the most important thing about the compass is that it gives us the framework for what exactly is a NEB project about. It is, you saw the beautiful, sustainable, together, the working principle, but also levels of ambitions for each of these. So what the compass says, for a project to be NEB, it has to tap into each of the values at least level 1 of ambition by engaging working principle, each of the working principle at least level 1 of ambition. If it's not that, it's not so NEB, right? And also it has to focus on one of those trends. In the NEB Compass, if you want to start learning more about it, you will discover what exactly that means with each of the level of ambition. But most important, it shows us examples of good practice, because NEB is about being inspired and building capacity, relying on previous experiences. So for example, this is one of the projects that is illustrated in this NEB Compass. So to have an idea about what means in terms of NEB to apply beautiful, sustainable, together, and these 3 working principles. Now, there is a different kind of framework that is very practical if you want to tap into NEBishness, which is the NEB Toolbox. And NEB Toolbox comes with methodological work that already have been happened, and it was selected to support those kind of projects. So in the toolbox, you will find all sorts of methods to prepare your work. I would underline, for example, empathy map, which is kind of new, to say so, or sustainable business model canvas, for example, but there is more. And the most important with the toolbox, I would say, it's about phasing your actions. Because now if you see it, it sounds logical. Identify, explore, refine. It makes sense for a project to start like that. But when you start a project, you don't think about going back to whatever you started and rethink it. Because identify means you identify a need for something, you start crafting your project, and then you're done, right? This is how we've done it so far. We have a set of action, it's done. But here they say, no, you go back and explore what is larger. And then it's not done. You do your exploration. Of course, you learn some more. Now you're more curious, more intrigued, challenged, and then you refine. So this is what I would say it's the most interesting part with a toolbox. Now, if you worked with this sort of bureaucratic funds projects, you probably heard about KPIs. Like, the larger the project, more money, more bureaucracy, more KPIs to define. This is a key. Thank you. So we know what we're talking about. So there is this fantastic group under Craft Cities project, and they managed to put together the NAB impact model. So they defined indicators to be evaluated under the NAB values and working principles. So if you look for the NAB impact model, the document, you will find all the details. What you don't see yet in the online is the gamified version of this, which I had the privilege to test it in Amsterdam earlier this year, which is a fantastic tool. Because basically you have this card with each of the indicators. In our case, we were 4 stakeholders at one table, and we started putting indicators that were important to us. And we came one after another. We had to connect indicators. So we created this path. In this photo, this is the table where I was at, and we were different stakeholders, like coming from different sectors. So our structure was quite free and kind of fragile, but then we looked at the other table where they were mostly from the local administration, and everything was compact and blocked. So you have learnings to get from this kind of playful. This was 15 minutes of work, but the knowledge that you get and also the structure that you get, because from this you create processes that are commonly agreed by the participants at the table. So this for me is absolutely fantastic in terms of starting to understand what NAB looks like. And then there's the EIT. EIT is European Institute for Technology and Innovation. There are multiple EITs, but one is Community NAB. So they are putting together work focused on NAB. And what is so interesting about it is they are focused on creating self-sufficient ecosystem. That means they talk about creating businesses. Because it's values, it's beautiful, sustainable together, but there's no talk about the money in the compass, in a way, right? With the EIT, they are supporting projects that are testing new business models to activate new communities, new kinds of building communities. And this is an example from last year when I was NAB Design Mentor for one of the projects in Ukraine. They got funded to do the extension of some historical residential buildings from the 50s in a historical neighborhood in Kiev. So their application in the beginning was, we want to create these attics in a sustainable way to host temporary housing, because that's the urgency now. And then while doing the mentorship, we co-designed together also with the community there this roadmap that started. Here it's their project proposal, which is what I've said. And then we basically structured this matrix with values and levels of ambition for each of the values, and working principles and levels of ambition for each of the working principles, and started to fill in what kind of action should we engage in order to check those boxes for different levels of ambition. And we ended up, so from having as a purpose to basically create some attics in a sustainable way, to actually use regenerative solution of rehabilitation for the historical built environment as a framework for modeling resilient socio-economic ecosystem. So we started with a very short-term action, and we ended up with just activating long-term processes that hopefully are self-sufficient and financially viable. Now, in terms of NAB aromas, so what we have out there to be inspired. One path, if you want to look into how NAB project look like, you can start with the NAB prizes. It's already been, I think this is the 3rd edition. You can see projects that started in their own way, bottom up, their own resources, and then they applied for the prizes to be validated. So that's very curious to see this kind of organic approach into finding the way towards nebbishness. So the platform, the NEB Prizes platform, is a good starting point if you want to learn more about what kind of project can be in this set of values. At the other end, we have Horizon Europe projects. I don't know, have you heard about Horizon projects? It's basically the dream for who is working in creative sector or doing research and academia to get one of those. They are but it's very top-down. Like Horizons are structured to be heavy. And they created a series of Horizon Europe projects that are supposed to be NEB-based. These are lighthouses. And I was in Ice Heart's Hands, which is one of those, but I also know about the other. These are the 5 NEB-based Horizons Lighthouse demonstrators. So if you want to see how it looks like to have a project that is very top-down, large scale, this is where you go for. And then back to EIT. What is interesting with the EIT is that they speak about this knowledge triangle, which puts together education, innovation, and business creation. This aspect related to business, at least from my experience, this is where I found it in the clearest way, put it up front. So if you want to go into this financial viability, this is where you go for. And because I heard yesterday some word about money, where do we find money? Well, there's going to be a new call on the EIT platform. It's called, so one line is Connect NEB, and the other one is Co-create NEB. They are small grants, usually are for 10 or 11 months, but it's a very good starting point to make a small consortium and to start thinking and digging into your nebbishness. And you get support, because when you get funded, you also get a NEB design mentor and a business mentor. So it's a cool place to be. So you can look for, so it's going to be in July. It's not now on, but just check later the platform. Now, from my experience as an evaluator for this call, my advice would be if you apply for this. So one thing, connect the dots. You have to create a network of partners to apply. You cannot apply alone, of course. But the danger is what kind of partners are you going to get into your project. So be careful to choose the right partners. Look into their heritage. That means look into their prior experience. Don't just get along with someone just for the sake of applying for the project and hoping that that's going to work. These are very difficult projects. If you are not surrounding yourself with good people that share the same values as you and the same drive, it's not going to work. So be careful with choosing your partners, I would say. Then simplify. I think when I started with cultural management in Romania, one of the biggest mistakes, and probably many of you will relate to that, is that you think that your project on paper is your dream project. And the first lesson that I learned in order to keep on going was, oh, these are two separate things. Divide et impera. One thing is your project on paper, the paperwork that you need to deliver to get your money for the work that you want to do, and the other thing is your dream project, where your soul is. So make sure you separate this and you make them connect. But your mindset shouldn't mix them, because you'll get lost in the process. And the third one is push the boundaries, because you need to get out of the crowd. Like with the EIT particularly, there are hundreds of projects that apply, and there are only 10, 12 to be selected. How are you going to stand out? And the way to stand out is do your homework, see what's happening out there, and try to figure out how you can push your boundaries further. And there is another aspect to this one. You might not get funded in the first place, but because you push your boundaries, you start to articulate a set of activities for your project. So perhaps it's not this your year, perhaps it's not this your line for the grant, but you start building something there. So it might be a different one next year or another place. So push your boundaries. And now I will dive into the practical part. I know with the online part, we cannot share the same kind of experience. So what I would say for those people at home or in other places, or if you are going to revisit this later on, if you want to play with NEB, the QR code that I put there will send you to an Excel table exactly as the one that you saw with the project in Ukraine, but it's empty. So you have your matrix, and you can start build your project. So you have the tool there. Now, in the creative cultural sector, for some reason, people start with their idea of something that they want to do. With NEB, it starts with identifying a need. So my advice would be, if you want to do some NEB activity, look around your area and identify a need. Placemaking starts with name placing. Identify the need, put a good name on it. If you don't name it, you cannot articulate it. We cannot talk about it. So think about putting a good name. Then explore. It's about building a pluralist conversation. You are outside, you observe a need in the public space, but you are on your own. Who are you going to get into a conversation to make your voice louder and to actually make a project feasible to sort that need? But also, you can check, perhaps it's not that the actual need that that place has, right? So try to figure out how to build a pluralist conversation, or an easier word, polyvocal, which is a new fancy word in this network of people. And the last one, refine the narrative, because when we start building a project, we are very complicated with the words, and then of course it's difficult to share and to engage other people into this conversation, perhaps a pluralist one. So refine the narrative, always refine the narrative and make it sound simple and accessible. As, for example, like sharing your ideas with a 9-year-old. Now, to get to the practical part with us here on site, I prepared some stuff, and then I will get back to this one. I think I will need a bit of help with the paper.